to talk for just a second about executive orders and like where they came from. So executive orders have always kind of been a thing, but they've changed and become increasingly powerful and influential over time. So executive orders come from part of the Constitution that basically just says, hey, the president, is responsible for executing the laws of Congress and using his branch of government to do so. And so the idea is these executive orders are essentially just like internal memos, right? Or at least at first they were internal memos to all the different departments within the executive branch of like, hey, as president, here's how I would like these things to play out. They can be declared unconstitutional if they go up to the Supreme Court. For the most part, in our first 100 years or so, they were mostly just kind of boring, unpublished, again, little internal work memos about how they want things to function. Arguably, the most famous executive order in all of American history would be Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. So this is him as commander-in-chief of the military, part of his branch, saying, hey, we are now going to liberate formerly enslaved people. As our military comes through these places, if we come across enslaved people, we are going to liberate them. That is now my directive to my soldiers. But what we should know, and one of my main thesis arguments about all of US history, is that one of the trends is the increasing power of the presidency. This is a trend that I really like to track when I teach, and when I choose which presidents to teach. We start with George Washington, who arguably thought the president should have as little power as humanly possible. And then we have these little watershed presidencies where there's lots of things happening, but one of the things going on is they're intensely increasing the power of their office. I would jump to Andrew Jackson. Then I would jump to Abraham Lincoln. Then there's some others I would talk about too, but then definitely FDR. And really in the modern era of American politics, executive orders have just become a way for the president to essentially govern without having to always go through Congress. So again, as long as these executive orders only apply or are only directly applicable to his branch of government, and if they're not found to be completely unconstitutional, they have to be based in some established law. Otherwise, they could be found unconstitutional or whatever by the Supreme Court. But otherwise, presidents, not just Trump, right? Lots of our previous presidents have all been using executive orders this way to essentially circumvent the other two branches. And one last reminder that executive orders really only apply to the executive branch. So when we're seeing a lot of these companies, private companies, following Trump's executive orders, let's say he says, I want in the federal government to scale back or end DEI initiatives. And then all of a sudden, private corporations do that too. They're not required to do that. They're doing that willingly. They're basically bowing to pressure from the administration that's in power right now. And let's remind those companies that they can do whatever they want. Trump declaring something as an executive order only applies to the people that he's the boss of. He's not the boss of Target.